A garden is to be created, but it is to have a path around the edge. The garden has to be half the total area and all the strips of the path are x meters wide. So here we have a diagram over here and you can see there is a big rectangle with the side here of 7 meters and the length as 10 meters. And in that, and this is basically kind of like the whole total area of the whole thing, and inside we actually have the garden, and we don't know exactly what, and the value is actually given is that the garden has to be half the total area of this entire thing. So it has, so the garden, so the area of the garden is half of the entire area itself. So what we'll first do is we'll try to figure out exactly what is the total area first. So we're going to write here area with the t underneath to show that's actually the total area. This is equal to 7 times 10, which is 70. So this actually is using meters as a measurement. So this is 70 meters squared. So that's the entire total area. The area of the garden though, the area of the garden has to be half the total of the area, meaning half of 70 is 35. So the area of G, which is the area of the garden, is equal to half of 70, 70 over 2. And you can do it in your calculator, but the answer is going to go to 35 meters squared. Calculate the width of the path. So we can see here that this is the garden. The garden's area right over here is AG, which is actually is 35 meters squared, and the entire total area of the entire thing is actually 17 meters squared, area of the total thing. However, what we do not know is the width, is actually sort of the width of the strips of the paved path. So of the paved path right over here, we don't actually know what's the width of this one, and it's said to be actually surrounding the entire garden around the edge, and we don't know what's actually the width of it. So this width of it is actually x meters itself. So the answer, we have to figure out how to calculate the width of the path. So the first thing that we'll actually do is we'll actually take on, so what we can actually see here is we can actually kind of divide this path here. So 7 over here, we can see that there is actually 2 sides right here. There's actually 2 sides of this one. So what we'll do is we'll actually take this section and we'll actually say that this path here, this side right over here of this side, we're actually going to say here as this is going to be 2, so this is going to be 7 minus 2x. So that's actually the first one. The second one that we'll use, I'm going to use this color here. I know it's hard to see, but just saying. Just getting some vibrancy color here. So here, we don't know what's this side here, and we don't know what's this side over here. But we do know that the entire thing is equal to 10. So this one is going to be, so this one right here is going to be 10 minus 2x. And this whole thing is equal to 35. I should have done it in green, but it's totally fine. This one is equal to 35. Now, so what we'll first do is, this is actually more like a this is more like a quadratic equation, sort of. This is actually is a polynomial. So what we'll first do is we'll actually convert it into this kind of format as ax squared plus bx plus c, somewhat like that. We have to convert it into this. So first thing that we'll do is we will actually first try to simplify these sides here. So this one over here, so these two, we already know that the total area is actually 70. So we'll actually we'll do this way. We'll first substitute this section. Sorry, we'll actually first substitute this section here, and then we'll do that. So the answer right here, this answer right here is going to be 70 minus, and this is going to be 14x. So this is 17 minus 14x minus 20x and this is going to be minus 2 times minus 2x, which is going to be 4. So this will be plus 4, and x times x will actually be x squared, and this whole thing is equal to 35. Now we'll take the 35 right over here so that the entire whole thing will be equal to 0. So let's actually do that. I'll convert it back to green. If everyone likes green, it's dream. So we'll actually have to do exactly the same thing as a x squared. That thing. So we'll first do actually x squared. It will be at the front. So we'll put 4x squared here. Then we actually have negative 14 minus 20. So this will basically be as negative 34x. Negative 34x. And we have the 35 right here. 70 minus 35. So when we bring this 35 over here, it will be minus 35. 70 minus 35 is positive, in other words, plus 35. And this whole thing is equal to 0. Now, this is where the tricky part starts coming. This is where we actually know that this might not simplify pretty much, but what we will use is the quadratic equation. And does anybody actually know exactly what the quadratic equation is? Well, the quadratic equation, I'll just first write this thing right here. So this is going to be, alright. So I'm just going to write this right here. So this is 4x squared minus 34x plus 35 equals 0. Now, we have to use the quadratic equation. What is the quadratic equation? Can anyone actually remember? It is x equal to, I'll just write it right here so there's actually more space. X equals to minus b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac whole thing divided by 2a. This is the quadratic equation. And if you guys have a graphics calculator, it's totally fine. You could use that one as well, as it has the idea of actually solving it using a quadratic equation. But if you guys do not have the graphics calculator, then you could actually use this sort of equation right here. Now, what we're going to do is, first of all, we'll actually note down exactly what A is, B, and C is. So this one over here is going to be A. So A is 4. A is equal to 4. B, I'll just remove the error here. B is equal to negative 34. Negative 34. And C is 35. C is 35. Now, using these values here, we're going to try to figure out exactly what will be x. So let's actually put this one right here. I'm going to change the colors here. Change it to blue. So this one will basically be negative of negative 34 will actually be positive 34. So we'll leave it like that. Plus minus the square root, the whole square root of negative 34 whole thing squared will basically become 11. So actually this will basically be negative 34 whole thing squared, and it will be equal to, it'll actually be equal to 1156. I'm just going to check my calculator. Whole bracket negative 34 whole thing squared. Yep, it equals to 1156 minus 4 times 35 and 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 35 is 560. And underneath it, 2a, 2 times 4 is 8. There we go. And so now I'm going to use my calculator right here, but anyway, let's actually solve this part right here. So this one here will be equal to 34 plus minus, underneath will actually be 8 as always. The square root of, we'll actually do this one, 1156 minus 560 is equal to 596. And this is the square root of 596. Okay, it's going to be some kind of decimal number, but we'll actually leave it at like that. 596 right here. Now I'm just going to use my calculator right here, and I'm sorry I can't really show it right here because I have right in front of my face. So this is basically, so actually we're going to get two values here. We're going to get two values from this one. So I'm just going to change colors here. So we're actually going to be getting like x equals something. So actually we're getting two values here, two roots. So let's actually do the first one. We'll first do 34 plus the square root of 56. So the square root of 56 plus 34, that will be 58.41 divided by 8 will be equal to 7.3. 7.30 actually meters. Now here's the second value, 34 minus the square root of 596 is equal to 9 point, okay, that's some kind of big number, divided by 8 will be equal to 1.19. 1.1 this whole, and because actually there's an 8 next to it, it's going to become 1.2 meters. Now we have to read this thing again because there's something important. Since we actually have two positive values, we have to figure out what is the width of the path. Now there is a simple trick to actually figure this out. So you could see here, let's actually first get this one right here. So we actually know the value. So value is 7.3, 1.2. So this will be, so x is equal to 7.3, 1.2. So actually it is 7.3 or 1.2. Now this is actually a quick calculation. So we have this side. So let's actually first put x equals 7.3. I'm not saying it is the answer. We're just going to do a checking here. So let's just assume that x is equal to 7.3. Then 7 minus 2x. So I'm going to just write here for you. 7 minus 2x. 7 minus 2x. This will be equal to 7 minus 2 times 7.3. 2 times 7.3. 7 minus 14.6. Okay, this is actually a bit weird. This will get us some kind of negative number, and that's not what we want. Let's actually do for the 10 over here. This, I'm pretty sure is going to get us the same thing as well. 10 minus 2x is equal to 10 minus negative 14.6. And actually there is another thing that we can say here, is that if you put 7.3 here, I think it's going to be quite big, and the sum for this side, or actually basically the total area, I mean if you figure out the area of the garden and we just subtract it from it and just like take the values of these two, it's not going to get us the perfect value. However, and actually 7.3, if you actually had a 7.3 width, it's going to be quite big, and also the area has to be much more wider. So the answer to that, the answer to the entire thing is actually x equals 1.2. You can't really have a paved path which is actually 7.3 meters. It's quite big. So the answer to that one is x equals 1.2. This is one of the most unique calculations that is going to come up in possibly any exam or something like that. But just saying that these are really, really useful, and it is easy to use these ones, and sometimes they get muddled up because sometimes it will say they calculate the width of the path, and if it says two positive values, and if it says that that one of these sides are equal to x, then you have to figure out exactly like does like as let's say if I actually have x equals 7.3, does it actually really get to the answer? And the answer would probably be no. It would not get to the value itself. So the answer right here will be 1.2, and it is much simple. And that'll be it for this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next video. Bye.